Hi, small group leaders. We're preparing for November 1st in our series called Short Stories. This is for kindergarten, first and second grade leaders. In this series, we've been taking a look at stories that Jesus told, parables, to help the disciples know how to live now that they are walking with Jesus. In other words, ways that we who believe that Jesus is our Savior, ways that we could learn from as well, because everyone who follows Jesus, believes in him, is called to grow in their faith and become a disciple. And so in our lesson today, we're taking a look at a story from Matthew chapter 8, Mark chapter 4, and Luke chapter 8. And one of the things that I love about the Gospels is I know that when we see a story like this happen in many of the Gospels, that it was a really significant story. That doesn't mean that any of the other stories were not significant, but just think about it. In your friend group, if all three of you told a story at the same time about a similar thing that you guys had been through, don't you think that everybody else around you would really pay attention to what you're saying? So I think that when God uses stories like this, and it's in the Gospels multiple times, it's one of those things that we need to pay attention to. And so what we're talking about is how Jesus calmed a storm. This might be a familiar story to you. And if it's not, enjoy learning this with the kids today. But one of the things that I want to point out to you, one of the things that struck me when I was in this place that the disciples are talking about, we got the chance to be on a boat on the Sea of Galilee. And it's not a big sea. It's not like a vast ocean. You can see from one side to the other side. In fact, the waters are so calm, typically, on this lake, Sea of Galilee. It is salt water, so it is a sea. The waters are so calm there that when the waves are hitting the rocks on the banks and on the shore, it sounds like a little cat sipping water, just lapping water. It just makes the most gentle little lapping sound as the water comes in. And I'm telling you this because to imagine that there was such a storm that terrified the disciples to the extent that it terrified them, it had to be an amazing storm. The waters are typically very calm, but there are mountain ranges right there all around this Sea of Galilee. And when the winds change over those mountain ranges, there can become like a squall. And if you've ever been a part of a squall, you know what this looks like. It is tearing up the water all around you. It is throwing boats over. So it is a terrifying thing. That's what I picture when I picture this storm. A giant squall that has come up on the Sea of Galilee to show the disciples what faith looks like. And so in your story today, you hear the disciples look at Jesus as he's sleeping in the boat in the middle of this storm. And they're awakening him saying, "Teacher, don't you care that we're going to die?" Well, we know that was not Jesus's major concern, was whether or not we were going to die. What he was most concerned about is whether we would die and not know that he was the Savior. That was much more important. The physical dying was not the important thing. And it's so ironic in this story that the disciples are most concerned about losing their life when Jesus is there to teach them that if you follow me, you gain life. And so you get to have a conversation around that with your kids today. And how exciting to have that kind of conversation about things. And right now in 2020, we all have experienced things that have rocked us to the core, and we understand fear in a very different way. And so I encourage you to kind of tip the iceberg a little bit on this with your kids and have them talk about fear, and then talk to them about what we can overcome fear with. I know yesterday as I was sitting chatting with one of my kids, I was reminding them, and she was reminding me that God says, be still and know that I am God. Even in the middle of all of these things that could be rocking our faith and making it to where we are extremely fearful, we can still trust a giant, great, big God. So your activities today, you have a couple different options, a couple different things to play with your kids. And I do encourage you, try to do all of these with the kids. Each one of these activities is written with a different meaning in mind. So your social activity is this game called Sturdy Birdie. And then the kids have had so much fun playing this. What they're supposed to do is toss the dice, and one dice has numbers on it, and one die tells you where you're going to rest your beanbag. And then there's also cards there. And so the cards are supposed to show you how you stand. And then once the kids roll the die, then they're all supposed to take turns trying to stand in that position with resting a beanbag or whatever other things you can find within your room, if you need to give everybody a chance to play. Whatever you can find in your room, while you count to how many seconds they are supposed to do that based on the number they roll on the die. Look at the instructions in your box. The kids have had so much fun with this, and this is a great activity that we will keep around if ever you want to pull it out again for kids to play. Remember, these activities are for you to build a relationship with a kid. When we take time to do things with kids that they enjoy, we are showing them that they matter to us. And because we have shown them that they matter to us, then we can begin to build trust. And as we begin to build trust, we can share big truths like we have from our Bible story today. And I know that we have had so many new kids recently, and building this trust takes time. And so I know in your groups, you are experiencing the ebb and flow of those that you do have a relationship with and those that are trying to join the group. These activities are awesome ways for everybody to participate. There's not anything that somebody needs to know or that they need to be able to do already. Everybody's starting on the exact same page with the exact same skill set to play a game like this. And once you have broken down some of those barriers, then you can begin to have the discussions. Then your small group activity is called Is It Possible? You can use your masking tape that's in your box to tape a line on the floor, or if you want to designate a certain line. I know in most of the rooms there's a line between the carpet and the tiles, so you could use that as your line if you wanted to. But feel free to use the tape as well. And then what you're going to have the kids do is step on either side of the line to the left of the line if it's something they can do. So have them show you the letter L so that they know where their left is. So they will step to this side if they can do something, and they'll step to the right if they feel like they can't, based off of the tape on the floor. And then you have a list of things that you can talk about there. Feel free to add based on who you know is in the group, or some silly ones if you want to. And then what we want to emphasize with kids is there are many things that we can do, but there are some things that we cannot do. Just like the disciples couldn't control the wind, Jesus could. Just like the disciples couldn't control the boat, Jesus did. And what we want for our kids to see is that Jesus was not just some ordinary man. He was God in person, is God in person, and he was there with the disciples to help get them through this crazy storm. Then your memory verse activity. These activities are going to become very soon more of a emphasize different words in a Bible verse so that we can realize that the Bible is relevant to our life. And so you get to kind of start with that premise this week. As you are playing this game, you have a bag full of balls and cups and some little food boats that you could store the balls in while you stack up the cups. So the cups are supposed to be stacked in kind of a pyramid, kind of like a bowling thing. And then kids are going to take turns after they have been able to say the verse and try to get as many balls as they can into the cups in 1 minute time, kind of a minute to win it kind of game. Again, emphasize that the words that are a part of this verse, the key passage or memory verse, are important to us because they remind us that Jesus was with the disciples, but once Jesus left the disciples, he told them, I am sending someone to be your helper. And we have that helper with us now. We, as believers, have that helper as soon as we believe to help guide and direct us and live with us, just as Jesus lived with them and God lived with the Jewish people through the tabernacle. Just as we've seen all the way through the Bible, God is with us in different forms at different times so that we know that he is there and that he is caring for us and he's taking care of us. And so that's what your verse is emphasizing. And I encourage you, as you help the kids learn these words, that you give them meaning and help them see the importance of those words. I encourage you, after you finish your small group activity, that's a great time to do the discussion questions, not right after the video. Give them some time to think about it. Give them some time to process. Give them some time to look at the Bible story if you want to pull it out of the Bible and let them see all of those words in the Bible because they are there. And so thank you so much for leading. Feel free to pray with your kids and encourage them to go home and tell their family what they have learned today. I love you guys, and I thank you so much for all you do to lead.